Good evening, guys. Welcome back to another video. It's late night in my house. It's the middle of the night, so everyone's asleep at this moment. So I'm kind of having to be as quiet as possible. But if this is your first time to the channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Ben Cardall, and I am the author of the best-selling book, The Monographs, which details the real-world methods for the skill set of Sherlock Holmes, how to develop them, how to train them, and how to utilize this in every situation you could possibly imagine. And I now spend my days teaching people from all over the world how to do it for the protection of themselves and those around them. And it even led me to a brief foray into the BBC Sherlock circuit as the real life Sherlock. So if that sounds like anything that you're interested in, do feel free to subscribe to the channel. Drop some likes and some comments on some interesting points if it is that anything occurs to you. Today we have a look at another of our psychopathic series. Again, not the particular psychopath we're looking at today is somebody else that the more infamous psychopath is actually talking to. So apparently this lady, Rebecca Fenton, is the best liar, just the best liar, in terms of how she's able to concoct her stories and her performances and the like. From what I know at this stage, she stands accused. I mean, if she's in prison, arguably there's a sentence that's already been passed, but you know, she believes herself to be innocent of the murder of her husband. So I've done a few of these videos now at this stage where the answer is already confirmed, right? So it's difficult to kind of backtrack through details that we already know. It becomes very easy to try and ascribe everything that we see to markers of deception, to markers of observation that we can use to further prove the point. And the main reason in us doing this is a little like the athletes who review game footage after the fact. In order to develop, we must continually sharpen our axe. So what we're looking for here is exactly how we can separate her display, separate her verbal content, and precisely what it is that she is doing in order to figure out why she is the best liar, or at least why she is perceived as being the best liar by others. I'm not sure that Piers Morgan's review of her is anything to stand by. I mean, I don't know how far his interest in the world of reading people goes. Maybe he's just spoken to more than enough people from these kinds of backgrounds. I was struggling to think of a nice word to describe them, but they don't really deserve that anyway. If you enjoyed the video that I did with Paris and Piers, and we'll stick another one of those cards about, then you might enjoy this as well, depending upon what kind of information it is that Rebecca has to tell us. Not literal information, but non-verbal content. So yeah, with that in mind, let's have a look, shall we? Just for the sake of clarity, this, much like the video with Paris, is a best bits, I presume you'd call it, from the episode. So let's have a look and see what we can see. I would imagine that the narrative of the story that she's telling would be a little like a Quentin Tarantino one, and then it's a bit from here, a bit from here, a bit from here, a bit from here, a bit from here. But we'll see how we get on.
I was very much in love with my husband. I had a lifestyle that was very grand. It would not have done me any good whatsoever to hurt him. I would not have gained anything monetarial. I would have gained more by having him alive. I'm not spiritually capable of hurting anybody. I'm not a murderer. I did not do this.
Let's...
Okay, I don't exactly understand what the cause was there in terms of her looking to the camera, presuming Piers was some kind of tell the people at home why they should believe you, that kind of thing. And what we've immediately got is her ego coming through. What you'll look at in the performance is two separate things, and I would urge you to watch either the original episode or just this bit again once while you're looking at it, and once without sight. Just listen, and you'll see that without sight, it's much more engaging on a way to empathise with this particular person. It sounds the part, but it doesn't look the part. There is breathing continual, which would dry the throat, which would give all the swallowing. Enough practice, and you can move your eyebrows in a way that would respond to that. But there's no bubbling development of that heightened degree of sadness, of frustration, of anger. That would whirl together to create that outward display of being wrongly imprisoned. First of all, that's what that looks like to me. Because there's nothing going on elsewhere. She's got a great lip quiver. Did you see that go? Like that. That was brilliant. But it was direct to the camera. That was the thing that got me. That's a lot of confidence, a lot of virtually Machiavellian behaviours. Let's continue.
Turn to the day that Larry died. Obviously, incredibly painful day. Tell me in your words what happened.
Larry was home. He was watching Tiger Woods and then was going to take a nap and watch the Super Bowl later on that evening. I checked on him to see if he needed anything. He said that we would order a pizza later, and I went back out to the gym. The last thing that my husband said to me was, "I love you." I had the music blaring and was working out. I walked into my house at approximately 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I found my husband in a pool of blood. I've never seen so much blood in my life. And I could see from where I was standing that my house had been ransacked.
Gone. That tone.
I didn't.
Gone. Genuinely felt states can't do that. Can't do that. They fritter away, they fade away, regardless of what it is. And they're like, she'll be one for her stories in terms of seemingly insignificant details. He was watching Tiger Woods, the Super Bowl. I went back out to the gym. When most people engineer a lie, they focus on the bits that they believe they're going to be questioned about in order to provide like a background feeling to a reality, you know? Or that's part of her, who she is, right? Because you have to explore both sides of this because we're dealing with very limited information at this stage. Or she has a frustrating neuroticism and attention to detail in terms of her behavioural pathology, right? But arguably, if she is in prison, her attention to detail can't be all that great. So the other side starts to weigh up a little bit further there. When you ask somebody what they did the night before, the next time you do this, you meet up with your friends. What did you get up to last night? And if it is that they were lying around the house, it was, I was watching Netflix, so I watched a film. Then it gets into pressing further because it doesn't hold any significance as part of the story. My husband was watching Tiger Woods. We were doing this. I went back out to the gym. It's all very regimented and played through. She's hitting every note.
No. If Larry had fallen down the stairs, if Larry had been shot, if Larry had been stabbed, I had no idea what had happened. But I frantically tried to take his pulse and then ran outside to call 911. I thought my husband was still alive because his eyes were open. And I told him to hold on. My world has not been the same since. And nothing has made much sense for me since that time.
But the police seem pretty...
What would be invaluable for somebody like me in this position would be to know how long after the fact this interview has taken place, to get an understanding of how many times she's told the story for this kind of revivified entity in terms of her descriptions. That was a much better display, better seemingly insensitive given the detail. That was a much more engaged display. You know, the eyes were starting to get a little misty. She's very well practiced in that kind of situation. And you can tell from, if I just wind it back just a smidge, you can tell from her forehead in terms of where the collagen and the elastin has worn, that consistent display with that dip in the middle of her forehead skin. She's worn that frown a lot. A lot. It's a go-to expression.
Since, for me, since that time.
But the police seem pretty certain that you were the killer, that you cold-bloodedly took a gun and pumped 5 bullets into your husband until he was dead. That's what they believe. Yeah.
We were thinking about this, and
I have to catch up with that bit. See, part of me now thinks that might have been an editing choice on behalf of the documentary filmmakers to have that kind of extended pause. Because if it wasn't, wow, the level of acceptance over that statement was quite huge. In terms of what we've seen up until that stage. I know it's only been a few seconds, but it's been a question about you killing Larry. I didn't, I couldn't, I'm not spiritually capable of it. I thought my husband was still alive, his eyes were open, sadness and the like. But for that question to come out, you cold-bloodedly pumped 5 rounds in him until he was dead. And then think about it for a while. That's an acceptance of that statement. Not accepting it as truth, but accepting its presence as being there and not immediately calling out its truthfulness or lack thereof one way or the other. Interesting.
both of us are married, and we thought, well, if this happened to us,
interview footage.
we don't think we would have left our spouse's side during that time. I mean, especially if we thought there was some hope that they were alive.
I got scared. I thought the best thing for me to do was to get out of the house.
What were you scared of at that time?
What had happened. Call the police, get people there as soon as possible.
Rebecca, what I don't understand, though, is why you take the time to go upstairs. The danger upstairs, the unknown upstairs. Why would you put yourself in that situation?
The more I pressed her.
I mean, that's a great line of questioning. It's a great line of questioning in terms of indirectly putting her into a corner, because again, she's hitting buzzwords. You can hear the time that she's using to buy more thinking time in terms of her responses. And it then comes in terms of call the police, get people there as soon as possible. Overthinking a guilty person wouldn't want people there as soon as possible. They would want time to clean up or do whatever they do in that kind of situation. But what were you scared of at that time? unless you're previously stuck in like an emotional black hole at that moment, if you've had an open display of vacancy, or delayed response times, for that delayed response again to come out of nowhere is thinking time. What were you scared of? What had happened? Was there a dissociative fugue involved? It's kind of a weak comeback, a weak plea deal to make. Whether that was mentioned or not, but I doubt it. She seems very much like the type at this stage, if we are looking at the best liar, to have thought through her story that much that she would be able to tell it and perform it, and have people believe this thing.
For information, the more she knew that I no longer believed that she was the grieving wife, and I was really starting to focus my investigation on her.
So the person that ransacked the place probably killed him first, you think?
You see them eyebrows away?
I'm sorry.
When I first met her,
That'd be the first sign of her being not as good of a liar, is because the police on this side have essentially brought up this kind of dissociative response that she's had towards the death of her husband, in leaving and time delay and the like. So once this next thing has come up, she's thinking on her feet, focusing on her husband. I can't carry on anymore. My husband's dead, and the like. And again, you can see those eyebrows from this distance with this kind of poor footage. Great performer, but you can see the asymmetry, first of all. And again, it sounds better than it looks. If you look at her responses with the I can't believe my husband's dead, I'm sorry, it's all extended breaths, so in order to regain that breath there'd need to be a big inhale, but there's none of that. Forced. Learn the responses anatomically to emotions, and regardless of their genesis, and it will provide you a much more detailed understanding of whether it's genuine or not.
and actually throughout my representation of her, she was...
Rebecca, tell me about your upbringing.
My mother lost me when I was 2 years old in a heroin house. I was born both addicted to alcohol and to heroin. She never really gave me up. She lost me, and...
How cavalier was that? How cavalier was that? That's a lot of trauma to get in terms of your childhood and the growth and development that you do through that side. I mean, clearly a woman that likes to take care of herself. So there'd be something in terms of an affinity towards looks and aesthetics and how appreciated you are, whether that be, you know, like a librarian or a teacher, you know, that kind of stereotypical appreciation have for women in uniform. You know, like the men in uniform is the fireman, the policeman, the army guy. The women in uniform is these kind of stock stereotypes.
I was raised by my adoptive folks until the time I was 18 years old.
How would you categorize your childhood? Pretty happy?
Yes. Yes. We had birthday parties and the Tooth Fairy. Always told that I was loved, that I was hand-chosen, and was always told that no matter what I did in life, to do the very best at it, and that I could be anything that I wanted to be.
What did you want to be? What was your dream when you were young?
I remember wanting to get into nursing. I remember another time I wanted to be an airline stewardess.
You have a life insurance?
Well, that was pretty spot on. Yeah, what we're getting from that, though, is a lack of identity, a lack of somebody who's connected to them. Yeah. How was your childhood? When people talk, how was your childhood? You know, I had a lovely childhood. I was very close to this parent. I was very close to both parents. We did this together. We did this together. People first in terms of the descriptions. Whereas when she spoke then, yeah, we had birthday parties, the tooth fairy. Okay, so the first things out of your mouth are make-believe, escapism, and the like, a lack of identity. You know, it's about assuming characters and assuming roles. For how this would be the equivalent of being a robot and having to learn about emotions through reading or watching films and seeing how other people engage. There's always that one thing missing, which is authenticity. When you're authentically speaking from a particular viewpoint or emotional standpoint or whatever else it is, but when it's coming from a place of authenticity, the immutable neuroscientific connection between body and mind is the thing that brings together everything for somebody within nonverbal communication to read, which is why the ability to pick between these lines exists at times when people speak from a place of inauthenticity, because there's no harmony in that area. What you're saying with these doesn't connect to exactly this.
Policy.
I think Larry does, yes.
For how much?
I don't know.
Who's a beneficiary?
I think I am because I'm his wife.
Were you
Again-
always completely...
Again, if you're thinking about that kind of thing as an obvious source of motive, for example, if you are as good of a liar as you believe yourself to be, you know better than to dodge that. You tackle it head on. You know, this is when somebody has an idea of where it might be going, and the subject, the criminal, is encouraging you to take a look at that. Yeah, I'm his wife, so I would be the beneficiary. Why? Trying to tip the tables backwards.
You faithful to Larry?
Yes.
There was a suggestion
Yes.
that you're aware of that there was a man at AA called David. You made 160 phone calls between each other over
After Larry's death, right after Larry's death.
a few
yes.
weeks. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of phone calls with another man. Was he somebody you had seen prior to Larry's death?
He was somebody that I met in AA. He was a very nice man. There was never anything romantic or sexual between us. And right after Larry was killed, he really stepped up and held
She
me.
knows a lot about eye contact, and we talk about gestural timing. You know, if you look at the cliched, most obvious lie, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky, and his right arm isn't connected to the timing of the event, where if it was coming from that authentic place, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. Right? These are timed when they're coming from that genuine place, and she knows how to do that with her eyes, with the, you know, these moments. He was a lovely man, and the like. We spoke a lot. Yeah, these are working on point. So when you're looking at the indications for deception that exist here, it might be wise to move forward in the understanding that her micro level displays will be on point, and it's the macro that will let her down. What I mean is that's a lens that we can examine what's presented to us. We should never speak from a place of expecting something to happen, because you're already biasing yourself to the outcome.
Up. I called him so much that it actually drove him crazy, and he had to pull away from me as a friend and not be able to really help me as much as he wanted to in the beginning.
You had a prenup with Larry. What did that offer you if you were to divorce her?
According to that prenup, I would get $24,000 for the next 2 years. But for me to stay with Larry alive, I would want for nothing for the rest of my life.
I guess a cynic could look at this and say, well, Rebecca, look, you know, if you were to divorce Larry, you would get $24,000. If Larry was no longer here, you would get over $1 million. It's just a straight fact.
Right. But a protect looking at from the other end, Mr. Morgan, would say we had no cause for divorce. In the court of law, they were not able to prove that we were unhappy.
That will be another thing as well. She will always pay to a character her minding of P's and Q's, her displays as coming across as a genuine, lovely, polite person. Somebody looking at it from this side, Mr. Morgan. And then you go back into your prepared speech of why it would make more sense for Larry to stay alive, thus negating her reason for killing him. Which, if you're looking at somebody with the degree of ego that's gone through these kind of constructed moments, Jodi Arias was another one in that area, and hers fell apart for similar reasons, basing your belief in your ability to convince others based on your performance and how you look and their engagement with you. This is a similar thing for her. So this will be a prepared speech now. Not word for word, but it'll be a prepared thing in terms of bullet points of why it would make more sense for him to stay alive. She's already said that she would want for nothing, so it will be along that line, but it will continue at this kind of speed, at this kind of development, because these words are bubbling at the front of her subconscious. She said them that much. This is a prime example of when you tell a story that often that you can become convinced of it. Right? If you look at the work of Elizabeth Loftus in terms of false memories and how they're developed, if you were to focus on a false memory that often, you could ultimately convince yourself of something that didn't happen 100% that way, thus making it nigh on impossible for you to give away non-verbal clues as to signs of lying, because in your own weird way you're not, right? You're not. And that's very kind of glazed over a lot of the science that gets to that particular stage, but that's the nature of what memories are when they are developed naturally and without training. They're fragile and the like. So she has told these stories that often that you can convince elements of yourself of their truthfulness.
Happy that we were nothing but blissful and very much in love. We had no cause for divorce or even spoke of it. This man would have taken care of me in a very high-class lifestyle for the rest of my life, as long as he had remained alive.
When you were a girl growing up, did your family have guns? Were you ever around them? Anything like that?
Distancing language.
I really can't remember. My father hunted bear and all of that. I don't remember being around a gun.
Okay.
I've never fired a gun.
Okay.
The police know that.
An expected line of questioning for a shooting, and if you've got that in your background, it's going to be pulled up. I didn't think she would go down the whole I don't remember kind of line. Unless the person in the midst of this story is her adopted father. Mind you, the mum losing her to the heroin house doesn't mean that she doesn't know her real parents or a real dad and the like, and they've had a relationship when she was of age. Yeah. So that's either going to be one of two things. Either she doesn't remember, which is unconvincing to say the least, but that's nothing more than that to base that on, or that's something that holds particular a particular level of strength to it in terms of the anxiety that it causes. So that's a knee-jerk response that you go to explain it.
The gun that was used to kill Larry was his gun.
Yes, somebody had to have found that firearm upstairs in our bedroom and used it to kill Larry.
Now you have these people breaking in, going to the bedroom while Larry's watching television, finding his gun, bringing it downstairs, and shooting Larry, who hasn't left that room. I mean, how could anyone do that unless they had personal knowledge of Larry and where he kept his gun?
I wouldn't know.
I mean, this is all...
That's a good response. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. To say I don't know is direct, is I have no knowledge of this. I can't, it's an exclusion in that area. When you're looking at deceptive practices, it's not a direct exclusion, because the traditional exclusions are to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my ability, as far as I know, that kind of thing. But when you're looking at somebody saying, I wouldn't know, you can certainly argue the point that it is an exclusion as well, but you can also argue the point that she is with you on that. She's on your side saying, I can see what you can see, and I can't connect those dots to how they know that. I wouldn't know. Not I don't know, or I can't know. There's no barrier between us in that statement. I wouldn't know. Based upon the previous levels of information we'd seen, I'd argue that that is either a very well thought through answer or fluke.
Getting ridiculous, isn't it, in terms of plausibility?
I felt the same way.
The police found in your car...
I felt the same way. She's doing it again. I'm on your side. I think as well, you know, we should come together to figure this out, and let's work this out, because I'm innocent, you're innocent. Let's do this. Yeah. Tackling those same things that everybody would be thinking, yeah, I thought it was crazy as well. I don't get it. Where do you go from there with somebody?
A bag that had the gun that was used to kill Larry. Now, obviously, if you're the police, you'll be thinking... Here,
with the breathing.
Well, what's it doing in your car?
I do not know how that firearm ended up in my vehicle. You know, when they found that firearm, they found it with no DNA.
But Rebecca.
That firearm with no DNA. Okay, there's distancing language there again, so a little bit more faith we can place in that as an observation. But if they find it with no DNA, so that'll be the next script that she's about to go into in terms of bullet points that she's about to hit of why this gun can't be connected to her. Again, encouraging people to look, because they won't find it. Bold move. But that comes back to the ego we saw right at the start of the clip.
You can see why the police are thinking this is all a bit odd. Why would anybody break in?
My memory card was full, so there might be a little bit of a jump there. Let me just wind this back. Because there was a moment that she knew she'd lost him.
See why the police are thinking this is all a bit odd. Why would anybody break in, kill somebody, and then...
That was it. I'm going to have to work a bit harder.
Actually leave the gun that they used. None of this makes much sense.
I felt the same way. That there was no way to explain some of this, and that it did look peculiar, to say the very least. But I had absolutely no gunshot residue on me, and I was tested that night in every aspect that I could possibly be. They took my clothes, my hair, skin scrapings. They stripped me bare. Gunshot residue is not an easy thing to escape if you have fired a firearm. And if you even walk into a room after something has been fired, you're still going to get that on your skin and on your clothes. And they found none of that.
So there's the end bit in terms of the prepared storyline again, we called it. But it directly flies in the face of what she said in that interview. I've never been around a firearm, never fired a gun, and the like. How else would you have that kind of intimate knowledge of gunshot residue and how it's transferred? Arguably, it's quite obscure to know that if you walk into a room where a gun has been fired, you can still get residue on you in some form. That shows a level of research, a level of knowledge about this. Now, at that stage, obviously, that could have come after the fact. Of course it could. But in light of everything else, that completely contradicts the points from the interview footage and the like. Very interesting. But, you know, I would have to agree. She's a bloody good liar. A bloody good one. And of all of the observations we've made, they are only on the strength of what can be confirmed through them appearing at other times, the size of the clusters that we developed, the connectedness that it has to information that we already know or information that they talk about and the like. But there's a little side to each aspect that isn't as clear-cut as you would like it to be to move forward, which is why I would imagine that's led her to this kind of status as being the best liar. Certainly a bloody good one, absolutely. The best, maybe not. But yeah, if you took anything away from that, do drop a click on the old thumbs up and a subscription as well. Hit the bell so you get notified of these videos when they come out. And yeah, if you want to see anything more like this, do drop them as comments into the chat as well. As anybody that knows me will tell you, I love to talk about this stuff as much and as often as possible. So yeah, with that in mind, guys, I hope you're all keeping safe and well wherever it is, wherever you are. And as always, thank you for your support, and I will talk to you soon.